Hi, welcome to LiveFaith live for the first time. A couple of firsts here. The first live LiveFaith, the first repeat guest being me. I had another video queued up, one that I'd recorded earlier this week. That's essentially similar to what I want to say today, but following some things that happened yesterday, being Wednesday, May 20th. I didn't like the tone. And I think enough things changed that it was worth shifting things up and going live like this, though that means that I risk saying anything that I might say live, but we'll give it a shot. So live faith. It's about talking about our faith, talking about our life. How do those things interact? How do we reflect the attitude that Christ calls us to, the faith that we have through our day-to-day lives? And we're in the middle of this stay-at-home order time, or hopefully towards the end of the stay-at-home order time, where there's been a lot of questions. There's been a lot of anxiety, a lot of unknowns that are out there. And now, specifically as a church, we're in conversations about how do we move forward from here. How do we move forward in the midst of the various orders that, for example, in our setting, Governor Walz in the state of Minnesota is laying out some things that are difficult to process. Those who follow me on Facebook, I posted publicly a letter that I wrote to the governor and sent to his official office contact list, stating that it's unclear to me why a restaurant can gather outdoors with 50 people, but a church can't gather outdoors with 50 people. So as we move forward, there's a lot of questions, and a lot of different churches are taking different stances. There are church denominations and organizations that immediately after the order publicly stated that they would be violating as a denomination, as a church group, violating the order beginning next week. As we sort of chart the path at River's Edge, and every church has to, I think, process this and decide how they're going to deal with it, there are three primary things that I think need to come into play when we're talking about the specific thing. And I wanted to sort of walk you through my thinking on these things, because I will be uncomfortable moving forward in any way until I have good answers for how I can live out my faith with these three specific things. And they're broad in general. And they're, especially the first two, it's the definition of what it means to be a Christian. First, we're called to love God. We're called to worship him, serve him, live our lives for him. We're called to have relationship with him, to have that relationship affect our day-to-day life. Part of that is worshiping him. Part of that is worshiping him in a community setting like a church. Hebrews talks about not giving up meeting together. In Acts, we're given the example of the early church that not only met together, they largely lived together. They spent their time together. It was what they were called to do. Our churches today, they look different, but the calling is the same. We're called to come together in order to worship, to learn about, to serve, to be encouraged in our day-to-day faith lives on following God. So we have to do that. That's number one with a bullet. Has to be done. The second thing that needs to be considered, and this is coming from Jesus, who when he was asked what's the greatest commandment, it's love God. But then he adds, and love your neighbor as yourself. We have to love others. If we don't love others, we aren't effectively loving God. Those two things have to go hand in hand. They have to connect. And part of loving others is being considerate of them, showing care for them. And that's why in the middle of this coronavirus issue, this comes into play. The whole idea of the stay-at-home order was to protect the vulnerable, protect what Jesus called the least of these, those who needed a little special care and a little special attention. And we as Christians are called to do that. we're called to be considerate of others. It's a consideration that I know I've been going over and over in my head with things like wearing masks. Wearing a mask isn't for you. Wearing a mask in theory is for others. It's to protect others from you. I have been trying to wear masks more often, not because I'm overly concerned for myself, because I'm not because I think I'm infected, because I'm pretty sure I'm not. Largely, when I wear my mask, I'm wearing my mask for the mental well-being of others, because I know people who are scared of this, who are just terrified about the unknown. Maybe they or somebody that they know is particularly vulnerable, potentially, to the virus, and they're afraid that they're going to get it and they're going to infect somebody else. And if I can put a mask on and give them just a little bit more confidence, give them just a little bit more peace of mind when they cross my path in the grocery store or in an office someplace, I'm willing to sacrifice my freedom for their well-being. That's what we're called to do. That's what it means to love others. It's to put them before ourselves. And when it comes to when are we going to meet together again as a church, when are we going to move past some of these things? We need to do it when it makes sense, while at the same time considering others and thinking about their well-being. Also remembering, if we push forward as a church or as individual believers with something we may firmly believe in, but they're still scared or they're still concerned, they have anxiety, and they get upset with the way we choose to proceed in the midst of our freedoms and our beliefs. If they're angry at us, we don't have an opportunity to speak Christ into their lives. We don't have an opportunity to share the gospel with them, because they've shut us out because of decisions we made. We could be completely justified in our decisions, but if that justification leads to a separation of relationship, that's not a sacrifice I'm willing to make. At the same time, we can't go forever not meeting together. So a balance has to be found, and it's not an easy one, and I'm still struggling with it, and I'm still chewing on it. But that's another question that I have to be able to answer when I'm ready myself to step into the next steps in this. And the third one, it's not a minor one. It's one that, in a sense, is pretty near and dear to my heart. But the reality is, we are called by God to honor the governmental officials that are over us. As a church, we've been going through 1 Peter, which is a letter that was written by Peter to people he called exiles and sojourners. It was a letter written to Christians during one of the most intense periods of persecution of the church. While they're on the run, while they're in hiding, because if anybody finds out that they're Christians, they're going to be arrested and tortured and probably killed. And in the midst of that letter, he tells them to honor Caesar, to honor the officials that are over them, because God is in control. He is sovereign, and the only reason they're there is because he's put them there, which is a little hard for us to process sometimes when we see the evil that sometimes they do. But God is still in control despite their wrong, evil actions. When he wants them out, they will be out. And we know that God can bring good things through anybody. So if Peter can tell people who the emperor is trying to kill to honor the emperor, I think I'm under obligation to honor a governor who, even though I don't agree with his politics, I did not vote for him and I will not vote for him in the future. I think he has acted with the best of his ability for the good of our state. And I don't agree with all of his decisions. And I am finding that I disagree with him more. Those who know me know I'm pretty solidly Republican and he's pretty solidly Democrat. But I have appreciated the leadership that Governor Walz has shown. I have and then I want to honor him because of that. And I want to the best of my ability, honor the rules that he's putting in his place as he's in the difficult position of leading us. That being said, that's number 3 on the list for a reason, because our number 1 primary calling is to love God above all other things and to love others. And at the point that item 3, honoring the government, begins to conflict to an extent that I can no longer justify conflicting with numbers 1 and 2, then we have a conflict and we have something that has to change. And the Catholic diocese in the state of Minnesota and a couple of other denominations have said that that's past the line for them, and they're going to be again violating the order. I don't know where I'm at with that. I'm just being honest. I'm going to keep processing. I'm going to keep talking to people. But I do know that it's really frustrating a lot of us that this is becoming a red-blue thing. And if the perception that if we start meeting as a church in violation of the government's orders, the perception that that's a church full of Republicans are violating a Democrat's orders, that's not okay. I will not accept it. This is not a Democrat-Republican thing. This is not a conservative liberal thing. This is a love God and love others thing, and honor the governmental officials that are over us. And that has to be a consideration. And that has to guide our decision-making. We are, as individuals and as churches, representing Christ to the world in how we deal with the situation. It's my prayer that more and more people will be open to hearing the gospel in the midst of all of this, because of the concerns, because of the questions that come up. And I want us to be in a position where we can interact with them, that we can engage with them to the best of our abilities, whether that's through online content, whether that's through meeting together in adjusted settings, whatever that looks like. And I'm going to keep praying for that. And I'm going to keep praying that I'm not going to be acting and being perceived as acting as a guy that has been active and campaigned with the Republican Party, because I've always said I'm not a Republican first. I'm a Christian first, I'm a conservative second, and I'm a Republican third. And I often find myself in conflict with Republican policies, just like I do with Democrat policies, and none of that has anything to do with this. And I need to make sure that that's understood for me personally, and I need to make sure that our churches are representing that as well. So I hope that those of you who are watching this, that you will join me in prayer, that you'll make sure that we are moving forward in faith, and our number one goal isn't to show conflict with anybody, but it's to proclaim the name of Jesus to a lost world, because that's what we're here for. We love God, we love others. In the middle of that, we're going to honor all of our governmental leaders, because we're called to, whether we agree with them or not. And at the end of the day, if and when we're in a position where we feel like we have to violate orders, we have to move forward no matter what, I pray that we would do it in love, with consideration for everybody around us. And whether that means us as a church or us as individuals going about our daily lives, I pray that everything that we would do would be reflective of the love that God has shown to us. That's what I got. I did it live. It is what it is. I hope nobody's too upset by this, but this is just me sharing what's on my heart. It might completely be irrelevant by the end of the day, because we're back to our entire worlds are changing every 2 or 3 days. That's okay. We take it as it comes, but we have our foundational principles. This is what all of our decisions will be based on, these considerations at this moment, and whatever changes, we will move forward from there. So God bless. This has been LiveFaith. Ooh, thank you, Maddie, for the work that you've done in these. And sorry I made you do a video that I took down. If Maddie doesn't watch this, somebody can tell Maddie that I said thanks. God bless. We'll see y'all later.